That is carried. So thanks, Robert and Co. from KPMG. Your approach has been approved without need of discussion. So go forth and audit.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. The 2021 work plan and long-term audit plan has been approved without a discussion. So good work, Mr. Ewan, and to you through your team. And I know your team is all working remote, so it's a little lonely for you over at the auditor's office there, but I think the plan speaks to your team's efficacy as well as yours. So thank you for that. And then the dashboard is approved as well. So we've still got 3 substantive items to deal with. So let's move right into those, hold on, let me just double check. No request to speak, no request for time specific. We'll handle these in order. Are there any councillor inquiries this morning? Not seeing any. All right, let's start with the city financial condition review.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it's actually nice to see a few people face to face. First of all, I'd like to thank Ms. Pearson and Ms. Padbury for their assistance during this audit. Through all the reimagine work and obviously the significant budget challenges, they were able to provide their staff and resources, so very much appreciated. We could not have done this without their assistance. This audit looked at how the financial condition of the city has changed over the past 20 years. In this report, the city's financial condition was assessed using 9 indicator measures representing the city's revenue, operating spending, capital spending, debt, and financial position. We have focused on the risks and impacts of those financial measures, making no value judgments around the quality of policy or budget decisions. We found that the city's financial condition is not as healthy as it was 20 years ago. The deterioration in financial condition is related to the substantial increase in long-term debt, of which the majority is tax supported, as well as the growth in operating spending faster than inflation and population growth. Additional factors include increased reliance on property taxes and government transfers, as well as a decrease in financial assets to liabilities ratio. Offsetting factors include increasing value and improving condition of capital assets and an increase in the city's financial stabilization reserve. This audit also assessed the effectiveness of the city's financial planning process in assessing risk to the city's financial condition. We found that the city's financial planning process is effective in assessing risk to the city's financial condition by evaluating and providing information related to each of the financial measures contained in this report. Those are my opening remarks, and I'm not sure if Ms. Pearson or the city manager have any remarks.
We do, Mr. Mayor, and Ms. Pearson and Ms. Padbury will deliver a presentation.
Great. Well, we'll cross-reference each of the administrative responses with each of the 3 items before us today. So on 6.6, happy to get the administrative perspective.
Good morning. We are pleased to present Administration's response to the City Financial Condition Review Audit. Joining me today is Stacey Padbury, Branch Manager, Financial Services, and Felicia Muthiardi, our Acting Chief Economist, is online. We accept the Office of the City Auditor's conclusions about the City's financial condition. We also appreciate the Auditor's comments about the effectiveness of City's financial planning processes in assessing risk to the City's financial position. In recent years, administration has made a number of changes to its planning processes to ensure long-term financial viability. We are committed to the continuation of implementing practices that manage risk, consider inflation and population growth, and diversify funding sources. To contextualize the financial trends presented, the OCA encouraged us to provide additional details in our management response. We did provide that detail, and we want to take a few moments of your time to highlight some key considerations. We are aware and have presented to Executive Committee previously that the city is increasingly reliant on the property tax levy. This graph outlines the city's historic tax and non-tax operating revenues as a percentage of total operating revenues over the period of about 25 years. Over the previous 10 years, property tax revenues have grown in their share of total operating revenues from 51% in 2010 to 56% in 2019. This divergence has occurred because, in real terms, as well as scaled to growth, non-tax revenues have seen relatively little change. Going forward, the city will use the recently approved policy C624, Fiscal Policy for Revenue Generation, to assess the appropriate revenue sources for services. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Stacey to review some additional pertinent trends.
The city has shifted its fiscal policy in response to economic environments. Over the past 25 years, the city has experienced distinct fiscal phases. From 1993 to 1999, the city contracted the size of municipal government, including service cuts, absolute reductions in full-time equivalents, limited capital growth, and limited investment in infrastructure renewal with deteriorating asset condition. We had periods of moderate growth in the early 2000s to counteract inflationary pressures, with some service growth, along with an increase in corporate FTEs to keep pace with population growth. However, with a limited capital program, asset condition continued to deteriorate. To respond to a rapidly growing city and economy, the city underwent significant growth from 2005 to 2016. This decade saw added and expanded services, significant capital investment, and the implementation of a comprehensive infrastructure renewal program. Since 2016, in response to the economic contraction and slow recovery, and more recently, the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on the city's economy, the city has slowed growth in taxation and operating spending while maintaining a capital program and continuing to invest in infrastructure renewal. Last fall, Council approved the lowest tax increase seen in 23 years, positioning us in a period of stabilization. This includes a slowing of growth in operating spending and taxation, all while continuing to maintain a capital program and our infrastructure assets. COVID-19 has had an undeniable impact on the city's financial position. The proposed operating and capital budget adjustments, as well as the COVID report coming in December, will provide Council information for the next phase of the city's fiscal policy. This slide shows the city's inflation-adjusted tax and non-tax operating revenue per capita over a 30-year period, with 1993 to 2019 historic values, along with the approved four-year budget for 2020 to 2022. During the city's growth phase, from 2005 to 2016, we can see how property tax revenues per capita escalated from $1,026 in 2005 to $1,604 in 2016. From 2017 onward, as Council shifted its fiscal policy through an easing in the growth of spending and taxation, taxes per capita tilted towards a flatter position. The approved four-year operating budget from 2019 to 2022 keeps this trend line relatively flat. Meanwhile, inflation-adjusted non-tax revenues per capita have remained relatively flat in the past 15 years, at $1,231 in 2005 to $1,303 in 2019. The 2020 to 2022 approved operating budget will see this value trend down slightly through 2022. The divergence indicates a greater reliance on the property tax levy to close the gap in net requirements in each year's operating budget process. There is an opportunity to lean on our non-tax revenues, the green line, to close some of the difference in the coming years. And the new fiscal policy for revenue generation provides a framework for assessing the appropriate revenue sources for services. In the city's financial condition review, a comparison was made between the city's annual operating expenses, the blue line on this chart, and operating expenses from 2000 to 2019, but increased by annual inflation and population growth, which is the red line. We agree that inflation and population growth should be the key drivers of operating expense growth. The City of Edmonton faces different inflationary pressures than residents do based on our expenditure makeup. The Consumer Price Index measures price changes experienced by Canadian consumers. These consumers spend money on food, housing, and clothing, whereas municipal governments build roads and bridges and buy trees and buses. Inflation for these items would not be clearly captured in the CPI, which is why we use the Municipal Price Index to estimate the inflation rate for costs of providing municipal services. In the report, the difference between actual operating expenses and expenses increased by CPI and population growth is estimated to be around 36% from 2000 to 2019. If the MPI were used instead of CPI, that difference has come down to around 16%. It is also important to note the difference has actually been gradually narrowing since 2015. The audit report touches on the growth of the city being a factor in financial pressures. We selected this graphic to show clearly that both population and urban land use of the city continue to increase. More than 12,000 hectares of land was urbanized, and more than 300,000 people immigrated to the city during the last 20 years. As the city has expanded over the years, there's been a corresponding increase in services such as fire halls, roads, and recreation centers. While it's true that the city does not have a financial condition that is as healthy as it was 20 years ago, the city continues to be financially viable. This is because we have a resilient financial position, sound financial governance policies, balanced budgets, sustainable infrastructure and asset management practices, prudent reserve management, and a AA credit rating. A component of financial viability also is responding to risks and challenges. There are increasing pressures on the city's financial viability. The current economic climate has increased the financial pressure on the city. Responding to the COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges it brings through a reduced property tax tolerance and through reductions on operating and capital transfers from the province. There are also ongoing pressures in the form of service demands. Edmonton's population is projected to continue growing. Internet-connected, globally aware citizens are now demanding the city take on a greater scope with greater variety of services, as well as higher service levels not demanded in the past. In the previous 10 years, taxation revenues have shouldered more of the burden than non-taxation revenues in the city's operating budgets. And lastly, council and the city's aspirations to evolve and build a better future through the strategic plan will take significant resources, which also places financial pressure on the city. All that. We'll now take any questions you might have.
Well, thanks very much for some of that analysis we've seen before, but some of it's new, so thank you. And thank you for the review, Mr. Ewan. Councillor Essinger, you'd selected this, so I'll start with you.
Thank you, and thank you very much. I'll start with Mr. Ewing and then with administration. I guess, Mr. Ewing, I just want to understand your perspective, because the MGA has a debt limit and the city policy is even lower than that, and the reality is we're still lower than that. But you still determine that we're not in a healthy position. Could you just speak to that?
Thank you, Ms. Essinger. Basically, it's because of where the debt per capita has increased over the past 20 years. So we're saying that the risks have increased because of the fact that there is significantly more debt per capita now than there was 20 years from now. And again, when we looked at all these measures, we tried to keep our analysis as fair and objective as possible by focusing on quantitative financial measures and noting how these measures would have impacts on the risks that are facing the city, not making any value judgments.
So help me understand this, because when I bought my house many, many years ago, over 20 years ago, my mortgage is much smaller than my children who have bought houses in the last couple of years. So do you compare the debt in that respect, that what life cost then to what life costs now?
Where possible, we definitely adjusted certain measures for inflation. And again, we looked at debt in terms of the increased risk it has to the city. And in this case, all debt values have been inflation adjusted.
Okay. And then to the administration, around the same question, I guess I've always felt fairly confident in our policy and being well below the MGA requirement as well. Could you just speak to that and how you see that?
So in terms of debt, we do look at the MGA policy and the city's own debt management fiscal policy, which is significantly more constraining than the provincial policy, as a measure that helps us mitigate the risk that the auditor is talking about. So each time that we bring something forward for approval, we show you what the impact of that approval will have on our debt limits in the future, and that's our way of mitigating that risk.
Councillor, just to add to that, we do not borrow for operating, we borrow for capital. And then we match our debt, like the years of debt, to the life of the asset to make sure that it is paid for, like to address the intergenerational equity issues. But I think that's an important distinction, that we do not borrow for the operating budget.
No, it's very important. Now, my other question is, and if you just help me understand, because we have a AA rating right now, down from a AAA, correct?
Actually, the last time it was reduced from AA plus to just AA.
Okay. So help me understand that nuance with the plus. What does that really mean to us?
Traditionally, it's a measure of the ability to borrow, but for us, we do most of our borrowing from the ACFA, so from the provincial government, and they do not necessarily consider this rating in that borrowing capability. But it is an indicator of financial sustainability generally.
Okay. So because we can only borrow for capital and not for operating, yet the demands on operating are increasing and we're trying to balance that. I guess maybe Mr. Ewing, how do you see operating then, the best use of operating? You're concerned that it's not, we're spending more than we should? Just help me understand, because we're not having debt on operating.
Councillor Esslinger, so the report states that operating spending has increased more than the rate of inflation and population over the years. So again, we're not saying that spending too much, just that now when you look at it over a 20-year horizon, that the rate of spending has increased, which looking forward, it's probably not sustainable. Unfortunately, times are a lot tougher now, where the appetite for property tax increases is probably not there. So that's one of the factors. So that's one of the reasons that we looked at that ratio.
Okay, I see my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Ewan and administration. This was a very good report. And so just so you know my approach to the analysis here, there's kind of three things. We all know we have to spend money, but like everybody else, have we spent our money wisely is the question. So people don't mind paying taxes as long as they get value for their taxes. We know we have to use debt. Businesses and individuals know we have to use debt. That's just part of it. But have we used our debt wisely is the next question. And then the last thing, and that part of the questions I'm going to get towards, in the end, as a macro picture, has council's actions and the policies that we have, are they actually working for us, not as a budget cycle, but as a long-term perspective? And so, but the first thing I want to get into is, and Councillor Esslinger did touch this, so I want to talk about kind of the measures that you did use here, Mr. Ewan, and just make sure that we're talking apples to apples. So on page 8, you talk about medium household income taxes have moved from 910 to 2,586 between the time period of 2019. So in your opinion, is this a measure against real income as the people's capacity to pay? That was going towards Councillor Esslinger's question, is this 2,000 number comparable in all meaningful terms to the 2019 number?
Thank you, Councillor Nico, and thank you for the compliment and saying that you enjoyed the report.
Yeah, okay, don't worry about it. I don't know why I enjoy this stuff, but it's just me.
So again, this was adjusted for inflation, and I guess the key ratio in that number that you pointed out was that now approximately 2.4% of a household income is going towards property taxes compared to 1.6%, so it's gone up. So
In real terms?
in real terms, yes.
And that's an important distinction, is it not? In real terms, we've taken more money out in real terms than we were in 2000.
Yes, and I think what you're getting at is you need to compare the tax hit, for lack of a better term, against income in the respective year.
Yeah, because you say on that same page, less income to spend as they choose. So I think that's a really important statement.
Yeah, so I should correct this. I guess it's the tax hit per the income in the respective year, so not exactly inflation adjusted for this one, but in real terms.
Yeah, in
Yes.
real terms. And that's fine, as long as we get that base number understood. So that's what I think is really important for people to understand. But this is another question. So our operating costs have gone from $830 million in 2000 to $2.5 billion in 2019. So that's this is a staggering number of 207%. Okay. And so why should I take inflation and population growth as the primary metric, as an important metric or measure on that number, in your opinion? Why was that really important for you to use as a bench?
That's an excellent question, and we looked at other audit offices, we looked at other municipalities that tried to do something similar, and it seems to be a well-accepted measure of looking at your spending compared to population and inflation growth. Now, I do understand, though, that there are other variables and services change and things change within a city. We tried to be as objective as possible, again, in our measures, and you know, for example, we tried to avoid subjectivity. So you could look at quality of life, but many cities have quality of life surveys, and some of them, like Calgary, Winnipeg, their quality of life surveys come back at 90-95%. So we tried to ignore that and just looked at things that we could quantify in terms of our financial measures.
The reason and this is very much an audit that we have the opportunity to talk about how things are connected, right? Because when we borrow, we create capital. When we create capital, Mr. Ewan, you talk about it in your report, not only do we incur debt, but as we build the facility, we have to maintain it, staff it, and so on. So can an argument be made that capital and debt do drive operating expenses?
Oh, for sure. Like, and and I'm not sure what page it is, but we do provide some data in terms of the operating costs of capital, and administrations acknowledge that for many years. Yeah. Part of their budget process always talks about what the operating cost of capital is going to be. But you're exactly right.
I'll have a second round, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Cartmel.
Thank you. Good morning. And thank you again for the report, Mr. Ewan. I wanted to dig into that metric as well, the inflation plus population metric. And I too am wondering if this is the right metric to be referring to. And I'd like to break that down a little bit. So if we have a population increase, and there's not a direct tie, but presumably we have an increase in property ownership, and therefore an increase in property tax revenue, simply because we have more properties paying taxes. Does that make sense as a sort of a first step in this analysis?
Yes.
And part of the development of land in an expanding city means we have more commercial activity, so we have more non-residential entities paying property tax. And so it seems to me that population growth by itself creates at least the beginnings of an uptick in property tax revenue before we get to inflation.
Yes, Councillor Cartman, I don't disagree with anything that you said. And I guess in this analysis, though, we looked at that some of the key drivers of operating spend is also population growth and inflation. But I do agree that it should also be a driver of increased revenue, especially tax revenue.
So I guess that makes sense for those lines of businesses that are services to people. If we have more people to serve, then we have to spend more money to serve them. And so there's a population component there. But should there not be a refinement and more sophistication in terms of the metrics we use? So for instance, if we have a larger roadway network, the amount of growth in that network would speak to pothole repair, roadway maintenance, snow and ice, those kinds of things, which does not necessarily correlate directly to population and inflation. Is that fair to say?
And I don't disagree with drilling down and trying to be as specific as possible. I guess in your example, increased population could also mean increased vehicle travel across those roads. And again, there are no perfect answers in terms of trying to measure financial condition. We tried to look at 9 measures based on our research that seem to be as objective and fair as possible. But you're right, there's all kinds of variability, and increased population growth could be a positive thing for a number of reasons as well.
Yeah, I don't know that it's the right measure. I think that, perhaps on an overall basis, it's the one we have. But and there's other departments where the amount of personnel, the amount of activity, the amount that we need to spend, say, for instance, in managing projects would be a function of the size of our capital budget and not a size necessarily of how much population and inflation have gone up. So there's a couple of examples anyway. Is it fair to say from your analysis that, so I see here, for instance, total operating revenue has grown from 39% in 2000 to 54% in 2019. So I guess what I'm getting to is the amount that our spend has gone up beyond population and inflation has been entirely supported by property tax. Is that fair to say?
Yes, because as you know, municipalities cannot run a deficit, so that's fair to say.
Yeah. And that might be a question for administration. Another question I have is with respect to government transfers. Were you able to break down how much of those transfers were operations funding versus how much were capital funding? And perhaps further, how much was capital funding for specific capital projects?
I believe we have that someplace off. The majority is for capital funding. What percentage? I don't have it exactly with me right now, but we do have that analysis someplace.
Okay. All right, I'll come around for another round. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Carmen, I believe it's about 80% is for capital, excuse me.
Thank you.
Councillor Knack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for the report, Mr. Ewan. And wanted to start just maybe by asking, so you've talked about how this audit, the purpose of it was to share where our current position is to where we were 20 years ago. What I'm not hearing, and I just want to clarify this, is that you're not necessarily suggesting that the capital investments that started back in 2005 were wrong per se, but that over the course of the last 15 years, building the Terwillegar Rec Center, Clairview, Meadows, building new roads, bridges, LRT, because those were not happening prior to that 20 years ago, that has changed our financial position to be less strong than it was 20 years ago when that investment wasn't occurring. Is that a fair takeaway?
Yes, Councillor Knack, and I guess that is probably the main reason that we haven't made a recommendation, because any recommendation related to the city's financial condition could be seen as prescriptive towards future budgeting decisions, which is not the role of the office of the city auditor at all. Those are strictly policy decisions.
Still an important flag, and I think that is why we've started to see the last couple of years a bit of a shift in the other direction. You know, I was going back to some of the old council minutes, and I think it started back in December 2004 where there was a unanimous vote for like a 4.5% tax increase, and there was a good decade of where they were 4, 5, 6, some as high as 7% increases, whereas the last couple of years have been less than 3%, in some cases 2%. So are you seeing, and I think I took away that in the audit as well, but were you also seeing a shift from what you saw maybe from that 2005 to 2015, 16 period to what you started to see the last couple of years?
Yes, I would agree with that. If you're saying that there has been more conservatism in terms of the spending, I would agree with that. And we've had lots of discussions with Ms. Pearson and Ms. Padbury and their staff, and they are certainly well aware of presenting similar type of information that we're presenting, giving City Council all the risks and financial impacts, and that's why the second objective, we basically said that they are providing that financial policy information. So I think that is something that this council and the council that will be coming in 2021 for the next 4 years, unfortunately, a lot of the decisions are going to be more on, not on what we can spend on, but what we can't spend, and that's, exactly. But you're right, that has changed over the last few years.
But we still have some larger capital projects on the book, to be very fair, so we've made adjustments on the overall operating side, but we have done still a lot of investment in the capital side. So again, identifying that in the report to suggest, be aware that continued growth in the capital budget has gone on, albeit we tried to offset it in operating.
Yes, it has, and as Councillor Nichol had pointed out, that growth in capital does also have an impact on our operating spending as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you didn't provide a recommendation, and I just want to touch on it because I think Councillor Essinger started it there, and I just want to follow through, which is that do you have concerns with the debt management fiscal policy? Do you believe it is fair in how it is designed? Should we be updating that? I know we've talked about it as a council before, but I guess that to me is one of the most important tools to help ensure we don't get carried away in any direction too far. So your take on that existing policy?
Councillor Knack, it's my understanding that the administration is actually reviewing the debt policy now, though. So therefore, we didn't believe that we needed to make a recommendation. And they've also acknowledged that a lot of the analysis that we did in this report, they will be using and providing additional information as they provide some more information to City Council as part of the Reimagine and budget work.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So maybe to administration, just wanted to get an update on that conversation, because I think that is the tool. It's one thing to talk about spending and provide specific numbers from the report. It's something else to say, if there are truly concerns, our mechanism as a council is to use that policy or make adjustments to that policy. So where are we at in that conversation?
So, Councillor Knack, I'll start, and perhaps Ms. Padbury will add, is that in 2021 in preparation and 2022 in preparation for the next budget cycle, we will be looking at our capital investment outlook, our debt policy, our operating pieces as well, so that we can provide a cohesive, comprehensive review of the debt policy, as well as all the other assumptions that go into the next budget. And so that is part of that work. I don't know, Ms. Padbury, has something else?
The only thing that I would add is, as we have started undertaking the work to review the debt management fiscal policy, including comparisons to other similar policies at other like municipalities across the country. And so that works in its initial phases. And it's always been something that we've known that we've had to do since since drainage was transferred, because we have to update the thresholds on the self-liquidating debt as part of that, but we wanted to do a more comprehensive review.
Okay. I think my time started late, Mr. Mayor, so I'm going to stop and come back for a second round.
Yes, you're mildly in deficit, but that's okay. Thank you for self-regulating. So I'll maybe pop in next. What was the infrastructure deficit in the year 2000? I don't know if we have a hard number on that, but the 22% assets in poor condition is one proxy for the state of good repair or state of poor repair.
Unless the administration has that, that's the one proxy that we used, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and I remember numbers in the, $10 to $12 billion range as being described, at least in the mid-2000s, as the infrastructure deficit, as a combination of that which we had fallen behind on, like rec centers, and state of good repair for roads and bridges and pipes and that sort of thing.
And the administration might be able to answer that. It's infrastructure deficit is somewhat subjective, so they would probably have a better answer.
Well, it is hard to count, and it is non-financial, but it is the thing that we bought. Fixing that is what we bought for the tax increases and the use of debt, at least to some degree, which is, I think, the other part of the picture here, that a financial analysis only indirectly captures. Would you agree? I would agree, yes. So then looking at, there's a number in the multi-year analysis right around, I think it's 2007, 2008, where there is a spike in the tax levy and a spike in the debt. And my recollection is that there were one set of decisions made around then and the impact of another set of decisions made previously that hit at the same time then. One was the decision to build $1 billion worth of rec centers, all using debt at about that time.
Yeah, and I guess just going, and I'll let the city manager answer this, but I think we did quantify that approximately 68% of the spending was for new growth and 32% was for renewal.
Yeah, and the renewal was, there's a bit of debt for the renewal for some of the bridge replacements, but other than those long-term assets, everything else had to be done with cash through programs like Neighborhood Renewal, which drove the tax levy increase over that period. And that was deliberately above inflation for the period of about 10 years in order to be able to fund on a pay-as-you-go basis the life cycle costs and dig our way out of that infrastructure deficit, whatever number that might be.
That's correct. Yes, in the mid-2000s, there was a concerted effort to build new infrastructure with debt and utilize debt on key infrastructure renewal to address the infrastructure deficit that you alluded to, yes.
But it was a double whammy of cash for renewal to catch up on the infrastructure deficit, namely neighborhood renewal, and also to build up the pay-as-you-go to be able to do that generally for other assets as MSI started to erode. Because MSI was announced and then it started to erode, and that was going to be how we were going to fund renewal. So we had to backfill the MSI cuts with more pay-as-you-go to be able to maintain state of good repair, not fall back into another infrastructure deficit. At the same time as 300,000 people showed up and we went from being the lowest cost place to do business in the country to the highest cost place in the country. That's just all part of the context of this from my perspective anyway.
Yes, I think Mr. Ewan alluded to that as well, that the debt was used to purchase and noting Councillor Nicol and Councillor Cartmell's questions around population and growth, but it was used to build infrastructure to support a growing community.
Well, and the other one that's a little bit interesting in here is the South LRT versus more recent LRT procurement, because there's a bump in the debt related to South LRT because at the time council used the then federal gas tax and leveraged that into debt at I think 6% interest, so double or triple what we're paying right now. And that one didn't drive a tax increase, but we paid $100 for that LRT line out of discretionary funds, albeit the gas tax. So there wasn't a tax increase associated with that, but there was a $700 million bump in the debt to leverage the gas tax. And that was really where, that plus the rec centers is where the debt spiked in the late 2000s, is my read anyway. Is that your sense as well?
Yeah, that's consistent with our understanding, and we did have the gas tax allowed us that one time to be able to do that, be able to pay for our debt servicing with federal gas tax money.
We only pay 20 cents on the dollar now for LRT instead of 100 is the point I was going to make, but I'm out of time, so I won't. I still have the chair, I guess. Okay, on the second round, Councillor Nicol.
Thank you very much. And the mayor has led into some very fundamental questions that we've heard over and over and over again, and some legitimacy to them. I will give credence to them. So I've heard this over and over again. We're playing catch up from the 90s. And so the one question that needs to be begged to be asked is that when did we catch up? Have we caught up over that? That's one question. And then that goes back to the next question, which talks about population growth versus demands. And there is, if we look at the chart, right, the people will infer that our spending grew faster than our population base over a 20-year time period, thereby inferring that perhaps we spent beyond our means, justifiably. Mr. Lofton, what do you think of those comments?
So in terms of the infrastructure deficit, we've improved significantly, but we're still addressing the infrastructure deficit. The program for neighborhood renewal continues to be a way to address that. The investment that council has made in facilities and roads using typically pay-as-you-go funding sources is addressing that, but there still is an infrastructure deficit that we're still trying to tackle.
Mr. Ewan, Councillor Cartmell talked about the question between population pressure and its mandates for growth. Isn't not the concern that can be raised is that it's the pace of spending that was at issue here against population? Is that not the concern you're raising with that chart? And inflation.
Again, it's just looking at the growth from the past 20 years in terms of where population grew and the rate of inflation, and the city's spending has increased more than that. So basically, that's why we have indicated that we believe is a greater risk to the city.
Okay, so I agree. You heard my earlier statements that debt is a fact of life, right? It works in business, it works with individuals, and so I raised the question about what we have spent money on. and the priority of spending what we spend money on. For example, I use this if primary infrastructure like drainage, if something like that fails, that's one kind of debt. Putting money into other like rec centers or LRT is a different kind of debt just because of its critical nature. Is that a fair assumption to say? If, for example, if we had bad drainage, right, that would kind of bump up our priorities, would it not?
That is a correct statement. I mean, they are.
It's just common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just common sense. And perhaps sometimes it's not fair to compare the two, but we have to balance out all those priorities. So, Mr. Ewan, speaking about drainage and the transfer to EPCOR, can you tell me how this was handled in your analysis? Because yes, we've moved the drainage asset into EPCOR, yet do we not still pay for that drainage asset through our utility rates? Just explain to me how you took the EPCOR number, which is a significant investment, right, by the city. How is that treated in your analysis?
Sorry, Councilor Nick, I'm trying to look at where we talk about. So in debt per capita, we do acknowledge that the decrease in 2017 reflects the transfer of drainage assets to EPCOR. So where the transfer took place, that's we tried to acknowledge that.
So, Ms. Pearson, sorry about that. So, in terms of the transfer, we gave it over to EPCOR, correct? And so EPCOR is now doing all sorts of things with drainage. And there is a reverberating effect of that drainage transfer is that we do still pay for some of this through our utility rates. Is that not a fair assessment?
So when we transferred the drainage utility, we also transferred the outstanding debt. We put in place a promissory note, so they pay us back and then we pay back the loans. But there are certain things that still are legacy in our infrastructure that we're working with EPCOR to try and remove from there's still a certain amount of contributed assets.
Right.
On a year-over-year basis is what I'm trying to say.
I'll have to come to a third round. I'm sorry, Your Worship. I'm just out of time.
It's all right. Councillor Cartmel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Ewan, I want to turn to, first of all, to the workforce growth spot on page 12. And the comment there in the audit report is that the portion of operating budget consisting of essentially the cost of our labor force has remained consistent. So it's remained consistent as a proportion of the operating budget. I think that's what the comment means.
Yeah, yes, and I think it was around 67% in terms of the cost of salaries in that.
But if we were to take that same inflation plus population metric, the growth in our workforce has far exceeded inflation plus population. Am I correct? Did we do that analysis?
Councillor Cartmel, we did somewhat of that analysis in the management staffing audit, which isn't part of this, but we did say that that there has been a growth over the past number of years in city FTEs, yes, compared to population.
Well, so if we go to the comparison to other municipalities, first of all, on the FTEs per 1,000 population, Edmonton has far more than the other two prairie cities that are listed here, than Calgary and Winnipeg. Now, is that an increase since, or is that just the metric? That's just the metric in each of these years. So we have far more FTEs per 1,000 than the other cities. That's what you're finding, correct?
Yeah, you're looking at the municipal comparison FTE per 1,000 population. Yes, and I do believe that this information was also provided by administration a number of months ago. I think they may have normalized the data, but you are correct that Edmonton is greater than Calgary and Winnipeg.
Do we know what it was? I think, the overall span of this audit is roughly 20 years. Do we know what it was roughly 20 years ago in terms, what, were we closer to Calgary and Winnipeg, or did we always have more FTEs per thousand?
Councillor Cartmel, we do not have that data, and it would have been virtually impossible to get that data from other cities 20 years ago.
Yeah. Then the chart below there is capital spending. Again, it shows that Edmonton has got about double the capital spending per capita, and not quite double the capital spending per Calgary. But I guess a follow-on metric would be, what are they, what is their level of where does their infrastructure stand in terms of its maintenance, its value, its renewal component? Do we have any information?
Councillor Cartmel, if you're asking where their value of their assets in terms of condition, whether poor, fair, or very good, I'm sorry, we do not have that data.
Yeah, so I guess, that would be interesting to understand just what other cities are spending their capital dollars on. So, as has been noted, we're spending more money than we used to, but I want to talk about looking forward here in my next round. But if we've increased substantially the condition of our infrastructure versus those other cities, that would be helpful to know whether this capital spend is out of whack or not. Versus LRT versus recreation centers.
Councillor Cartmel, it's Adam Laughlin. So I think that would require quite a bit of historical analysis, because I do know that Calgary made a decision in the 80s and 90s around investment in infrastructure that the city of Edmonton at the time did not.
Yes.
And so I think the audit reports reference apples to apples. It is extremely difficult to do an apples to apples comparison for municipalities related to capital spending and the decisions and the choices they have, and also the FTEs, because it all comes down to the services that are offered by the municipalities. As an example, Calgary doesn't have a large snow clearing contingent because their conditions are very different than the city of Edmonton, as an example.
Right, yeah. Thank you. I'll come around again.
Thank you, Councillor Knapp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few more questions from me. So, Councillor Cartmel, I think in his first round was talking a little bit about the change in population and the increase in taxes. And I know, I think it was last term, we had done the integrated infrastructure management planning for the 3 remaining area structure plans. And so at that time, our numbers had shown that there was about a $1.4 billion deficit over the course of the 50-year life cycle. And that's just for the capital investment needed. That had nothing to take into account for operating. Is that correct? So essentially all the taxes from commercial, non-residential, residential would have still produced a deficit based off what our numbers had said. Is that right?
On the basis of the build out of those neighborhoods, I believe that number is correct, yes.
There was, to be fair again though, UDI I think has suggested that those numbers, they question that. And I'm curious, have we done any more updated analysis on that? Because I think that goes back to this question of how much we are growing in terms of physical size and what that does. Our city plan had a bit of an analysis to suggest that we would actually save money by staying a little more compact, not growing quite out as far. So is that sort of the most recent analysis that we have?
Councillor Knack, Ms. McCabe here. Yes, that is the most recent analysis, the city plan report with the 8%.
Yes, and so how do we feel? I mean, I know since there was dispute previously about the numbers, was there more agreement on that, on the analysis that happened within the city plan and how this ties to our overall financial capacity and future spending on capital?
I would say that those conversations are incredibly complex, and to say that industry fully agrees on that would not be an accurate statement.
Yeah.
And I think some of the work that we've seen through the IIMPs, it really is about how the neighborhood is built and and in terms of the mix of residential and non-residential and the services provided in that neighborhood, which is part of the feedback that we receive from industry is about the service level provided within those neighborhoods.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, I just wanted to get an idea of the scope because, again, we're talking about what we spend a lot based on items that needed to be built, and Councillor Carmel is rightly talking about what we do going forward on this. One question I forgot to ask, sorry, from the debt management fiscal policy, recognizing that it is going to be under review, we're going to have another look at it in 2021, 2022. Is there anything from administration's perspective that gives us cause for concern about where it is right now? Do we feel there are any glaring issues? Because I imagine if you did, you would already have brought that conversation before us. Is that a fair assumption?
That is correct. There are no glaring issues for us at this time.
Updating it for the new reality, recognizing that, so that's some of the work that we would do across many of our policies, but overall, you feel comfortable with the position that sets out in relation to not just what the provincial government allows under the Municipal Government Act, but just more generally around the economic conditions, the economic climate that exists right now.
That is correct, Councillor. The one thing we are monitoring with respect to that is the weaker economic activity, and if that starts to trigger some things, we will bring that forward sooner.
And we're still I don't know, well is ill-defined. We are still below the threshold set out under the debt management fiscal policy, which states that no more than 15% of our operating budget can go to debt servicing. At our peak still, even over the next couple of years, we still peak at, what is the peak? Is it 12 something, if I remember, 12 point something?
It would be close. Sorry, I have the number in terms of we would be using the peak would be, we would be using 72.4% of the 15%.
That's our
so
peak.
About 12,
so
yeah.
About 12%. That's what I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so there's still room. Whether or not we should take up any more of that room, again, future conversations, part of why we're updating the policy, but still below by more than a quarter what we currently set out. Okay. That's very helpful context for me. I think that's probably it, and I'm going to run out of time anyway. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Councillor Nicol on the third round, go ahead.
Thank you. And that ties quite nicely into the question about the city debt policy and its limitations. So in 2000, we were at 83 million in tax-supported debt. Today, it's 2.7 billion in 2019. So, Mr. Ewan, I was trying to find a definition of per capita. Is per capita, what is that defined as? Adult? Is that defined as resident? I tried to look in the footnotes, and I just want to understand, because the per capita debt has gone from 699 to 3,124 over the span.
So, Councillor Nicol, sorry, we should have put that in the footnote. It's based on total city population.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Pearson, I'm going to talk you through this, and we'll see how it goes, because I have a concern on the debt limit policy as I started working out the modeling and the mechanic based on the rules. So the debt limit is set at 2 times city revenues, correct? Correct. So therefore, city revenues drives our debt limit. Fair?
That's correct.
So as we go through, if, for example, and what's considered part of city revenues is if the federal or provincial government decide to drop their grants or whatever, that would have an effect on our city revenues, correct?
Sorry, Ms. Padbury can answer that. She's just reviewing.
It does, but I believe the limit is set at 2 times city revenue less grants.
But, okay, but okay, so let's take, for example, if we do have a drop in city revenues. For example, the assessment goes down and or there's less people to pay. Our debt limit is really driven by that simple mechanic, is it not?
It's generally driven by revenue.
So this is where I raise a concern. So we raise taxes, so we raise our revenues, thereby raising our borrowing limit, correct? That's how the mechanic works, because it's 2 times. And therefore, we raise the borrowing cap, which we borrow, because we are under this impression that we can raise that cap and we have more room, and that drives in more operating costs and debt servicing costs. Therefore, we seem to be tied into needing to raise more revenue. Do you see that cycle?
I can let Ms. Padbury talk again, but the tying it to revenue does allow a shrinkage as well. It does allow for some tougher choices at that point. But it is a pretty standard fiscal measure to tie your debt to your revenue cycles as an ability to.
Absolutely, and I'm not disagreeing with that. But it seems to me, Ms. Padbury and Ms. Pearson, that council can be under the impression that our debt limit, because there's lots of room in that debt limit, we can borrow more. But that borrowing more drives different other costs, which forces us to raise more revenue to pay for, and we get into this cycle of tax, borrow, spend, tax, borrow, spend, kind of mechanic. So, I look at it this way. Is it fair to say that this policy is not about a tax limit cap, but it's really a debt limit adjustment tool?
Yes, and I think the link speaks, though, to affordability. But you're right, it depends on the view that you have towards the policy.
Yeah, so it gets, and then the last question becomes to Mr. Ewan. We all borrow at decent interest rates today, but there becomes a point where the debt reaches a tipping point in terms, do you not agree, against our capacity to pay that servicing cost. It's not about it could be 2% today, it could be 5% today, so inflation's a real risk, and so on, let's just say. And so eventually the rule of large numbers kicks in.
Councillor Nichol, if you're saying that, yes, the risk and affordability, which is what Ms. Padbury just talked about, always has to be factored in, because you're right, there is a portion of the property tax that goes towards that debt servicing cost, and as interest and inflation increase, that portion will also increase.
In my last 13 seconds, I just wanted to understand how you assess some of our ongoing future liabilities in this audit with regards to other large capital projects. We do have a number of large construction projects going on. Were they functioned into our risk analysis and our liability ratio?
So we monitor debt on a go-forward basis and do a forecast, but when you see a ratio of current assets to current liabilities, or when you see a ratio that is as at 2020, it doesn't incorporate the forecast. But we as administration, we monitor that forecast going forward and report that to you quarterly.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councillor Carmel?
Thank you. Councillor Nichol asked my question in its entirety. The cycle of raising revenue, which raises debt limits, which then raises the requirement for revenue, which raises taxes. So I thank him for that. I have no further questions.
Are there any other questions arising from items 6.5 and 6.6? Not seeing any. Someone want to move receipt of information?
I'll remove receipt of information.
Thank you, Councillor Nichol. Please vote on receipt of information.
Oh, I just want to speak to it real quick. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Do you mind?
No, sorry.
No, it's fine.
You're, okay, go ahead.
If anyone else, just to close.
I do as well, Mr. Mayor, just to,
I'll close.
I want to speak to it at some point.
Okay, Councillor Knack, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, and I wanted to jump in and speak to it briefly because, I think this is actually really constructive discussion about the policy that we have, about the position that we're in. It's challenging when an audit like this gets released because it's really easy to go and pick one number and say, Edmonton's spending more per capita than city X, or our debt has gone up by X over 20 years. And when you tweet that out or when you post it on social media, there's no context, right? there was a slide at the end of administration's presentation that I thought was really valuable that should be plastered up everywhere. The reason that spending's gone up is because we spent 11.6 of the borrowing on LRT South, 10.8% on Valley Line Southeast, and so on and so on and so on. And I'm not saying all of those were the right investment, to be very fair. There are things that I actually did question back in the day before I was even on council. But that chart shows all of the investment that went into the city over the last 20 years. So it's easy to pick out a number and say we're doing way worse than anyone else without then saying, well, I also didn't think none of these things should have been built. I hear very few people say, we shouldn't have built out the LRT, we shouldn't have rebuilt the bridges, we shouldn't have built those recreation centers. So I wanted to say that out loud because this conversation brought in the nuance, which I thought was really important to when we're talking about an issue like this. This is a nuanced conversation. And I think the auditor rightly identified, Mr. Ewan and team rightly identified, that our position today is not as good as it was 20 years ago because of a lot of what we've just talked about. Now, it's also a fair warning that we can't go on forever doing exactly what we did during the last 15 years over the next 15 years. And I'm not hearing anyone suggest that either, to be very fair. So I felt it was good to talk about this, to speak to this, to say, easy to pick out numbers, very challenging to share nuance. Like even for myself, I'm thinking about how do I want to share this publicly with the residents that I serve. And I'm trying to pull a couple of different charts and write this. I'm going to end up probably writing a 3-page or 10-page long blog post that tries to provide nuance, and nobody's going to read it because it provides all of that detail and nuance. Whereas when you post one quick picture, it makes it a lot simpler to drive a message home. So I just thought we should make sure we remind ourselves as we're talking about this that there's been a lot of investment as a city. I think we also need to be well aware we can't do what we have been doing the last 15 years. And the updated policy discussion around the debt management fiscal policy is going to be an important tool because I think that is one of the best tools that council has to make sure that if we have concerns, if there are concerns going forward about managing how we're borrowing, what we're spending money on in relation to everything that we're dealing with as a city, that's the right tool to affect change, to make adjustments. And we've heard admin has said that there's no glaring issues, although worth noting that if any of us think there are, we can obviously bring that conversation forward right away and make some more immediate adjustments if we're worried about what's happening. So I say all that to say, overall, I think, I was here for part of the spending over the last 7 years. There was a number of other members of council who was there even before me. I look at the list and I think I see a city that wanted to take very seriously the needs of a lot of residents through maintenance, renewal, and growth. And we could nitpick each of these, as I'm sure we all will, and that's part of it. But I think that I'm comfortable overall looking at what had happened. And I also have a caution for myself or anyone else that we won't be doing the same thing for the next number of years. No matter how fast we grow as a city, no matter how much further we grow out, we have to recognize that we've taken on a lot in the last little while, and we should be cautious and thoughtful using these policies that we have in our decisions going forward. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I spoke to this.
No, not at all. Thank you. Councillor Carmel?
Thank you, and I too wanted to speak to this. I can understand what a lot of what has been said today. When we look at the condition of our city, going back 20 years and the amount, the condition of our infrastructure, the requirement to invest in that infrastructure to bring it back up to some standard and to improve that condition before it literally crumbled into the earth. I think that was, a difficult thing for the council of the day to contemplate. They had to borrow money quickly to invest in that, into maintaining and upgrading that infrastructure. That includes some component of borrowing money and some component of planning for the future. The Neighborhood Renewal Program is a great example of that. The idea of understanding life cycle costs when it comes to infrastructure and establishing a way that this can be done automatically. There was step function changes that were required to make that happen and to allow us to be able to do that work on an ongoing basis, and I think those were good decisions. But at the same time, we're now at a place, and we were doing that from a philosophy of what is it we need to do, what revenue sources do we have, and whatever else we need for revenue, we're going to take in taxes. And I don't know that there was a lot of places where we would have changed that, frankly, except for me and some of the LRT conversations and discussions. I think we were trying to catch up to perhaps to Calgary and what they had for a system because they had maintained some of those investments. And they have a larger population base. But that aside, this cycle of seeing what we need to do and raising taxes to do it, which and therefore increases our ability to borrow, in a inflated way, as Councillor Nicol has outlined, I think it's now time for that cycle to end. I think we need to look at this differently. I think we need to look at what are our revenue sources and what should we fix in terms of those revenue sources? What can we control and what can't we? And I think that starts with fixing our property tax take. I think that we have to look at what we can reasonably expect in terms of revenue from other levels of government. I do not like the language of 20-cent dollars and 40-cent dollars. We have one taxpayer, and a dollar is a dollar that comes out of a taxpayer pocket, one way or the other. And I think we need to have a really solid look at that. We did have a conversation a few weeks ago at Executive Committee about other sources of revenue. And if we can find a way to arrive at a revenue strategy that preserves our property tax rates at what they are now or lower, I think that should be our starting point, and that everything else should flow from that. How much we borrow, what our borrowing capacity is going to be, and notably, what our ability to spend in terms of operating costs will be 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now when we layer on the operating costs of the capital that we're building today. I think we should have a very solid look at that, and that should be what feeds our discussions and our decisions around how much debt we take on, what projects we support, without losing the plot on making sure that we maintain our existing infrastructure asset mix. So I hope that this conversation is the beginning of a changed approach to determining what we can do in this city, how big a government we can afford, and therefore how big the government is going to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Carmel. I think I agree with many of the comments about the value of this analysis and the context that it provides, and there are very real fiscal pressures that we face in this environment, and there's no doubt, and administration has really nicely described that there was a period of rapid growth and catch-up and inflation and aspiration for the city for a period of time, and that I don't think it's a decision to discontinue that as of now. I think we throttled back on that several years ago, in fact, and so I think the arc of that will continue to be a discussion for council, but I think clearly we've throttled back already. Some of the same drivers that drove those investments are still there. There's still condition challenges with infrastructure that we need to continue to chip away at. And this is why we've continued to push for discretionary funds in the charter and the fiscal framework so that the city doesn't have to be overly reliant on property taxes for pay-as-you-go to fund state of good repair. Because there are a lot of conditional grants out there, but not a lot of unconditional grants. And if you don't have unconditional discretionary grants, your only other alternative is pay-as-you-go from property taxes, which drove some of these challenges historically and could continue to drive them, or create the false economy of cutting back on state of good repair. So I think that there's a fine balance there that council will need to continue to consider. I do think that there are some particular regional factors that distinguish Edmonton's condition from Calgary. Our load for policing is for the whole region, the inner city of Northern Alberta. Calgary gets to spread policing Southern Alberta's inner city over 1.3 million taxpayers. We spread it over just under 1 million. So there are some equity factors that make some of the comparisons, and that is our largest operating pressure area. Makes it harder to run those comparisons. Also, we've made different choices than Calgary over the years. They've used development cost charges and levies much more aggressively than we have to pay for road infrastructure and for recreation centers, fire stations, libraries, and police stations. If we had done that, our numbers would look more like theirs. But we have not. We have chosen over the years, for various reasons, to use tax-supported debt primarily to pay for that infrastructure. And that has driven taxes and debt. So we've made different choices, and there are timing issues as well. So Calgary built a lot of LRT for $10 million a kilometer at 9% interest, and we built a lot of LRT at $100 million a kilometer at 3% interest with 20-cent dollars. And I will differ with Councillor Carmel because yes, they're all public dollars, but the other way of describing the ratio, which I do think is relevant, is that it's gone from us paying for all of it to paying for a third of it to paying for 20% of the capital cost of it. And the reason why, in effect, is that there are grants, albeit conditional. In essence, there's $300 or $400 million a year of federal, provincial dollars that, and perhaps I'm a little close to it because I worked pretty hard to secure a lot of that money, that we would leave on the table if we were not matching at the 20%. And so that's a fair policy debate. I think this council has had that debate. I think council will continue to debate that, but some of those decisions are settled at this point. Finally, on for me anyway, though, finally, I think it is time for us to look at the debt management fiscal policy and understand what our appetite is and think strategically about the different carrying cost scenarios. Because one of the things we were looking at a few years ago was as a bunch of this debt from this period of rapid expansion in the last decade expires, do you want to move back into borrowing, or do you want to get back into a pay-as-you-go revolving fund strategy? And I think that that's going to depend significantly on what has happened in the inflationary environment and what the interest costs would be. And there's probably an optimization there that's scenario-based that I think this council could begin to look at. I think it's probably the next council and the council after that are going to get to start to look at what happens when those expire and whether it should be re-leveraged through borrowing or whether the city should move back to something like the pay-as-you-go cycle that it was previously using, or a blend of the two, which I think is a fair policy question for us to start to think about. So I'll stop there and see if there's anybody else before I go to Councillor Nicol to close. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. And so I began this reading of this audit with these three principles in mind, and I think they're worth repeating. Have we spent our money wisely? People don't mind paying taxes as long as we get value for those taxes. All governments, business, and individuals use debt. The question is whether it's wise debt, and can we afford it in the long term? And in the end, it is our council's actions and its policies working not just for a budget cycle here or there, but for the long term. So to me, it's clear that I have a couple observations from this audit. First of all, after 20 years, in my opinion, of constant tax increases and aggressive capital spending, this city's financial position has moved backwards. I think that can be demonstrated here. Number two, I think we have a debt management policy and or tool that either by omission or commission, it moves council and administration to a tax spend, borrow, tax spend cycle and or mentality. And I don't think that is, it's not a cap. It is a kind of a management tool. So, and last, I think, the last 2 points here is I think we have to be concerned about, and I didn't get much to talk about it today, about some of these future liabilities, these ongoing liabilities that are not presently on the book, but are risks that are out there, and particularly with some of our larger capital. But this is what I do know. I do believe this corporation has reached a tipping point, an absolute tipping point, and it's not about the interest, how small it is, just the sheer number of dollars we are borrowing is driving to increase taxes, which in turn increases debt, and so on and so on. And it's a vicious, vicious cycle, and we've got to stop. So I did ask about these fundamental basic metrics with regards to per capita and so on. And yes, we've heard it can be rather simplistic in some of these applications because the public will not understand the nuances, but it is very clear what I've heard from constituents is that they feel that they're moving backwards. And I think arguably there is a question of, are we getting richer or are we getting poorer for our citizens? And I did start this call about 7 years ago, saying at the collapse of oil prices, we needed to hit the brakes hard. And so that call is just deafening. We have to hit the brakes hard. And we have to stop what our new spending. And we have to stabilize our organization and the city financially. I think the audit just speaks to that. It's not all administration or council, it's always a combination of two. And I've always taken the approach, even with my criticisms that people hear quite often, I try to get you out of trouble, not into trouble. That's what I'm trying to do here today. But listen to this number. Long-term debt has increased 347%, moving from $699 per capita to $3,124 per resident. And I asked that question. That's for every man, woman, and child, if I understand that correctly. There just comes a point where that number gets just too big for people to take. So yes, we know it's time to stop, and there's another side to this equation that we have to talk about, is about rebuilding the economy, because revenue is not just about cutting up the pie, it's about growing the size of the pie. And so we can get more revenue. Because what's at risk is going backwards for this council and some of its progress that it's made over the last 8 years and so on. And that's what I'm really concerned about. Our debt, our taxes, our spending have put our present progress at risk, and perhaps we cannot continue that progress going into the future. So I want to say very good audit, very good administrative response. I really do appreciate the frankness with regards to the tools that you have at your disposal. And I do think we need to take a hard look at how things are connected. That when we borrow money, we spend it, it drives operating, which drives FTEs, and so on and so on. So for me, and with my last seconds, this is not so much about labor. This is not so much about the revenue base. This is now turning into very much about a management of how things are going to move forward. And so with those words, I'll close. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Please vote on receipt of information of 6.5 and 6.6.
We have all the votes except for Councillor Resslinger's.
It didn't pop up, but I'm a yes.
Display the vote, please. Okay, we're still not seeing Mr. Burrows on there.
Well, it didn't pop up for me either. I'm a yes.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So noted. Okay, good discussion, rich discussion, or poor discussion, depending, but I think we're richer for the discussion. Now let's get the presentation on the Social Development Branch audit and bring in the delegation for the administrative response at the same time. Mr. Ewan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Smythe and Ms. Ford and their staff for their cooperation throughout this audit. especially with the added stress and workload they had to balance because of the pandemic over the past number of months. From my team and from talking to them, I know there was some significant stress that we're all facing, but in the nature of their branch, obviously, they face that every single day. This audit was a branch audit of the social development branch. We identified and prioritized the following risk areas. How does the branch assess the effectiveness of the activities it performs given its role in Edmonton's social sector? How does the branch evaluate whether or not it has achieved value from its activities, whether or not it has, and in particular its activity of distributing financial contributions? How does the branch ensure that the financial contributions it has distributed are being administered properly and are achieving their intended purposes? The branch fulfills its purpose through a variety of roles and activities. These roles and activities are critical to achieving the branch's mandate to ensure that every individual, regardless of gender, age, income, ability, or place of origin, is engaged, included, and afforded equitable opportunities to thrive in their community. To ensure that it is effective, the branch needs to implement and communicate an entity-wide process that aligns the branch's activities with its role, purpose, and outcomes. Doing so would enable the branch to continually assess the effectiveness of its work in Edmonton. The branch also needs to implement an entity-wide process that evaluates the achievement of its activities and outcomes. This would allow the branch to objectively determine how effective it has been with using taxpayers' dollars. The branch also needs to improve the adequacy of the administration processes for its financial contributions. Since these activities form an important part of its work, the branch needs to ensure that the administration processes are designed to support adequate management oversight, effective monitoring, and accountability of taxpayers' dollars through regular value for money assessments. To address our findings within this audit, we have made 3 recommendations, and I believe the administration also has a brief presentation.
We'll just load our slides here. Thank you. Just to introduce our delegation this morning, with me in chambers is Jackie Ford, branch manager of our social development branch. Also online we have Judy Smith, director in Jackie's branch. So we have reviewed and analyzed the auditor's report and certainly do accept the 3 recommendations put forward by the auditor. Pass the presentation over to Jackie to briefly provide some specifics about the branch and our response to the auditor's recommendations. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you, Rob, and good morning, committee members. To get us started today, I wanted to give the committee an overview of the Social Development Branch. The chart on the screen shows our structure as realigned in January of 2020. There are currently 5 sections, down from 2 years ago, with just over 100 people working towards our statement of purpose, which is to provide access to services and resources for people experiencing social and economic barriers. However, this chart doesn't do justice to the work that the branch does every day within the corporation and the community. The social development staff work with other areas of administration, other orders of government, and have relationships with well over 300 nonprofit organizations. On a typical day, we're supporting people living rough and encouraging them to access services. We are supporting an increasing number of survivors of domestic violence. We're in neighborhoods working with citizens to manage safety concerns. Our Indigenous Relations team is working on multi-jurisdictional and urban Indigenous issues. We are working with nonprofit agencies to create a stronger social service sector. We're supporting volunteers who are on council advisory committees and the new Community Safety Task Force. We're working with community housing agencies, providing land, technical advice, and grants. We offer advice and intervention services for people at risk of being evicted from their homes. We lead and convene citywide responses to mental health issues, seniors issues, the opioid epidemic, and suicide prevention. And we are often instructed by council or committee to conduct research on emerging social issues and to work with specific nonprofit organizations to help them achieve their goals. Over the last couple of years, the branch has been reflecting on the scope of our work, the demands of the community, and the changing financial picture of the city. As human and financial resources shrink and social needs increase, we concluded that the way to ensure meaningful impact is to have intentional focus. We cannot help everyone, but we can focus our efforts and resources on serving those who have the least and face the greatest barriers. We also recognize that we haven't spent a lot of resources or time examining how data could impact our work, nor have we resourced collection and evaluation to the level it deserves. We have tried to bring focus to our mandate, and you can see where we landed on this slide. Being focused is not an easy feat, considering the increasing pressures on municipalities to respond to social issues, and we know that the impacts of the pandemic continues to disproportionately impact people experiencing poverty and homelessness and racialized people. The branch focus on these 6 key areas of business represents a shift from trying to help everyone to helping those who need it most, a shift from multiple priorities to strategic priorities, and a shift from measuring outputs to measuring impact. We were on our way to making these changes when the pandemic disrupted our plans, but we have not lost sight of our intent. I've described the branch's work in the realignment process for a couple of reasons. First, to reiterate that we are pleased to have gone through the audit, as we believe that the recommendations confirm the direction we chose in our realignment process. And secondly, to show that while the audit focused on financial contributions, the scope of the branch is much more than the distribution of funds. It is, however, a lever, one of the levers that we have at our disposal to create impact in the community. However, the work of evaluating the branch's impact as a whole will be challenging. The Social Development Branch accepts the 3 audit recommendations and had work underway on 2 of them before the audit began. Recommendation 1. Our evaluation team, while smaller because of some staffing changes, began work on what we called Project Impact in late 2019. Once completed, this will help us create our framework and give us some direction on which of several measurement options we could use to measure our impact. Measuring impact is the second recommendation. Our measurement will need to take into account our financial contributions, our non-financial contributions, social needs of Edmontonians, and of course be aligned with Connect Edmonton and the city plan. Recommendation 3 is well underway, and while we ramp up the systemic use of the Customer Relationship Management Grantor Program, we will be using an interim tracking process beginning January 2021. We will work closely with our partners in finance and make sure coding and the input into SAP is more standardized, and staff training will be mandatory for anyone using the tracking system. This will ensure consistency across all business areas and financial contributions in line with the granting policy. Our branch staff are extraordinarily good at providing frontline, planning, and technical services that address a wide scope of social issues. Financial processes, data collection, and evaluation have not been, as the auditor recommended, a central business activity. However, our realignment work and the lessons learned from the audit lead us to believe that we are on the right track. And on behalf of the staff and leadership of the Social Development Branch, I would publicly like to thank Mr. Ewan and his team, Ms. Kasazi, Ms. Muraglod, and Ms. Williams. Throughout the audit, the team in the Office of the City Auditors was patient, supportive, and above all, consummate professionals. It was a pleasure to work with them. And with that, we're open for questions.
Thanks very much. Councillor Essinger, you'd selected this. Go ahead.
Thank you, and I'll start with Mr. Ewing. Mr. Ewing, I think I read in the audit somewhere that you of this branch was consistent with the social roles of local government. So they're doing what they should be doing. Was that what I understood?
Councillor Essinger, based on our research of other municipalities and social research studies, I would agree with that statement.
So they're doing what they should in a local government. The challenge was trying to aligning all of the various grants into consistent administration and evaluation. Maybe it's misfortune. And you're looking at how to come up. One of the recommendation was about an overarching framework. Do you feel you're well on your way to do that now?
I would say that based on the work that we did in 2019 leading up to early this year, we are on our way. It is, as I tried to capture in our presentation, really complex in terms of the measurement for financial contributions. I really appreciated on page 6 of the audit that talks about the different types of contributions. Some need evaluation in different ways than others, but when it comes to across the impact of the branch as a whole, I think the considerations would have to be the work that we do, what the community and what council expects us to do. And to be quite frank, there's lots of different methods to measure impact, and we have yet to land on the right one. And when we do, we of course would come back to council.
Well, it's very complex as you're getting funding to do from different organizations, and I'm sure they have different requirements, and you're trying to use those to come to a common requirement. Would that be true, or is that some of the complexity?
That is some of the complexity. What the audit doesn't go into, nor did it have to, is the FCSS grants from the provincial government. A significant amount of our work happens with those grants. They're structured by the province. The province has its own audit and it's also its own outcomes expectations, and we meet all of those. Our housing grants are a little easier to manage or to measure because we can say we need X number of houses or units, and we can measure that quite quickly. It's that other work in between that is a combination of financial and non-financial contributions that is where the complexity and, to be quite frank, sometimes the messiness comes in.
Thank you. And Mr. Ewing, one of the things I had noted was some of the challenges in getting the outcomes determined for the different grants. Now, did you consider the complexity of the different granting? There are places we get money from, the FCSS, federal government, some of those make it very complex.
So, Councillor Essinger, I guess in general, whether it's grants or just the general mandate of the branch, trying to measure social impact and outcomes is very difficult for the public sector. And there's a multitude of factors that come into play. And I guess what we're trying to say in this audit is that clearly defining the activities that the branch will do to achieve the outcome, and then trying to address the social challenge, and then establishing targets to monitor the achievement of those activities will go a long ways in terms of making sure that the branch is achieving value for money and directing their dollars into the best use of their resources.
In your opinion, if the branch is able to do your recommendations, coming up with that overarching framework, consistent administration processes, and a measurement of outcomes, we'll be able to get accurate measurement of that social return on our investment?
Yes, it won't be easy. It's not easy. This is a very complex subject, and we had lots of discussions with the branch's management team about this. What we can say is that the branch is extremely committed to what they are doing. So hopefully that these recommendations will help them focus their resources in the best way possible.
So it wasn't about not using the resource, it was more about how we measured the outcomes and whatnot, predominantly.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Councillor Carmel.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I've got some difficult questions. So I understand, first of all, from the audit report, page 5, $67.9 million essentially is the net cost of the department to manage $127 million in essentially money going out. Have I got those numbers correct? Am I interpreting that correctly?
Counselor, I'm just trying, the 60, what was the 65 million? Where did that number
Well,
come
on
from?
page 5 of the audit report, it says that the branch had 135 full-time equivalents for a total net expenditure and transfer of 67.9 million. And then on the following page, it says that the branch provides 127 million in financial contributions. That sounds like $68 million to manage $127 million in money going out. Am I reading that wrong?
No, you are reading that right, and I guess a portion of the 127 million is the FCSS money, and 67 million includes the financial contributions of the city.
Right, so, well, it says, so on the following page, it says $57 million of the branch's financial contributions are from the tax levy. So there's roughly $11 million that comes from somewhere else to support the activities of this branch.
Yes, and 127 million was for 3 years, so that was from 2017 to 2019.
And is the $67.9 million and that's an annual cost? Trying to understand how much money goes out, how much money goes in, and how much money is consumed by this branch.
Okay, and I'm trying to look at the 67 million that you're referring to.
On page 5, in the left margin.
Oh, yeah, yes, so that is the annual, that was for 2019.
So $68 million in net expenditures in 2019, 135 full-time equivalents. How much money went out to other organizations?
So from 2017 to 2019, the branch provided $127 million in financial contributions.
So if I take a third of that, that's $42 million went out. So I guess this is a case in point of why we really need some metrics, targets, and outcomes. I guess my next question is, what do the 135 people do?
Counselor, I could take that question. The amount of the branch's scope of work is much more than the financial contributions. So the disbursement of grants is one thing, but we have 54 social workers, or 45, 50, let's say 50 social workers working in community. They're not directly working in the distribution of funds or the allocation of funds or the granting process. We have planners working in housing who may be working on the technical aspects of housing development. So the 135 FTEs are not all working on moving or distributing grants. The granting team's actually quite small. So the scope of the audit is focused on the financial contributions. However, the work of the branch is much, much broader than that.
Ms. Ford, is there anything that the branch is doing that couldn't be done by another social service agency?
That's a tough question. I think the question would be from the community and from the municipality. Are there some things that we don't want to be in the business of? I think it's a philosophical question, and it's a question that we talked about in our branch when we were doing our realignment work in 2019. What is the role of the municipality when it comes to social issues? And it's a question that's evolving greatly, and I don't know that anyone has landed on the answer yet. So in the case of the work with, I'll just pick one, seniors, if the city was to leave that work, where would it go? What entity or what organization would be providing operating subsidies for seniors and helping them with their centers and their programming? So it's a tough question. It's one that we actually have grappled with over the last 2 years.
Thank you. I'll come around for another round.
Thank you. Councillor Nicol.
So, Mr. Ewan, to me, this is very much a trust but verify kind of audit. They're doing good work, but we have problems verifying that. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes, they are certainly committed to doing good work, and through our recommendations, we want to make sure that all their activities are aligned to their mandate, that there are no duplication of effort, and that they have some sort of process in place that they can evaluate the effectiveness of their activities given the investment of tax dollars into those activities.
And I guess, Ms. Ford, and to Mr. Smythe, would you agree with this audit's not so much to me, and this is just my opinion, okay? Just let's be fair about that. This is not about how much money you are spending. It's a concern about, if your money's actually mattering. Is it actually having an effect? Are we throwing it against the wall and hoping something sticks kind of audit? Do you see what I'm getting at, Mr. Smythe?
Yeah, point taken, Councillor. The evidence is not as transparent or as clear as it could be. And that's the journey we have been on for a short amount of time and will pursue. And just to amplify, I mean, this is a complicated file. Business units like our Indigenous Relations Office, I mean, they convene, they meet, they build relationships, and getting metrics to show the outcomes that unit is achieving we got to get our head around that.
So,
and it's a challenging piece.
Right. But there are places, for example, and to Councillor Cartmell's point, it says the branch has clearly defined purpose, role, outcomes in the City of Edmonton corporate documents. That's crystal clear. But the branch does not have consistent branch-wide process to evaluate the achievements of its activities against its intended outcomes. So that pretty much substantiates you're doing stuff, but we're not, I'm sitting as an outsider, but can you prove it to me? Is that a fair kind of response, from when I read this audit?
That's the work we have to do over the foreseeable future.
So, let's because I am going to echo Councillor Henderson in all the good ways today, because he is very concerned about how we measure things, particularly in this branch. And let's start with Councillor Cartmell's point. We put out 127 million here over that time period, right? And we don't seem to be able to argue that value for money. Is that a correct assessment, Mr. Ewan, of that 27? Even though there could be, it's just a question we don't know.
We don't know. That would be a correct assessment. And hopefully through these recommendations, we can get processes in place that will ultimately determine whether the outcomes that were supposed to be achieved, whether they were achieved, or how far along did the administration get in terms of the targets that they wanted to.
So, okay, so let's put that over there. There are some very difficult things and arguable MTOs with regards to certain files. But you have to administration, there are also some basic things here that really need to be the mechanics of your department that kind of raise some flags for me, like on page 12, not optimizing existing mechanics, agreements, systems, existing models, and so on. I mean, doesn't that, I guess, I look at Ms. Pearson too, because she has to write checks for stuff, right? Isn't this something you could get to rather quickly in terms of assessing whether or not we've had an effect, a positive metric, or we're moving in the right direction?
Yes. And the two recommendations that I mentioned we'd already been working on before will be implemented quickly. There will be some need to create there's the customer relation management grant system that we can use, and we use it really well. We use it well in housing, we use it well in FCSS. The difference now is that we need to pull those other contributions into that system so that they're better monitored and tracked. The reason that we realigned the branches to some degree was we had some files where different sections were responsible for different pieces of work on the same file. So realigning those sections means that there's not two sections working on the same thing.
Ms. Ford, I'm going to come back for a second. I'm going to ask you a tough question, okay? How many times have you folks been reorged over the last couple of 5 years?
To be quite frank, I don't know. I've been here about 2.5, so this is my reorg.
Rob, how many times have we reshuffled this one?
I can't give you a number, Councillor, but this area has been impacted over the last few years.
I'll come back for another round, sir.
Councillor Nicol, I would say that it has, and it's because of the changing dynamic of supporting the social system in the city of Edmonton, and maybe a bit to what Councillor Cartmel was asking is, should we be in this space? I think Council has identified through different mechanisms a gap in the system, and this has been a way to fill that space. So I think this has been changing because the environment's been changing around us.
Councillor Knack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe just a few remaining questions based off of Councillor Cartmel and Nicol were talking about. So maybe to Mr. Ewan first, recommendation 2, which all of them have been accepted. My biggest concern outstanding was actually just frankly the amount of time that the implementation date was supposed to occur for recommendation 2. So it shows that this needs to take a little over 2 years to implement that. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, based off your audit, do you feel that much time is needed to fulfill that objective or that recommendation?
Councillor Knack, you're right, it is a significant amount of time. These type of frameworks do take time, and I guess we factored in the fact that unfortunately probably over the next year, the branch and the city will still be dealing with the pandemic, and much of the resources of the branch will be focused on that. So we factored that in when we accepted the timeline.
Okay, so you do accept those timelines when they're given to you as part of the recommendation?
Ultimately, the timelines are up to the administration, but we will discuss them if they came back and said something like 5 years. Obviously, we're going to factor that in whether we want to accept it or not. But this one seemed reasonable based on all the circumstances that the branch is facing. Okay. Well, okay, all right. I guess, and I don't know if this is to Ms. Ford or Mr. Smythe, but yeah, that was my biggest concern, because when I see a recommendation that asks to implement a process that evaluates the achievement in the branch's activities and outcomes, I worry that is scheduled to take 2 years and 1 month. And I appreciate that we're in a very trying time, but that recommendation to me feels like something that would probably be a standard or that what we would want is a standard in virtually every branch. And so I just wanted to maybe get your take as to the rationale for the timeline that's been presented.
Thank you, Councillor, and I agree, it is a long time. And to Mr. Ewan's point, the pandemic really has turned our work plan upside down. And even the realignment process, we have folks working in different sections now because of the pressure points, because of some of the social issues. We do have some evaluation happening. I don't want to come away with the sense that not any of our programs are not evaluated. They are. Programs are evaluated, different parts of our work are evaluated. That big overall arching framework has yet to be built. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that the scope the scope of our work is expansive, and to be quite frank, even in the 2 years I've been here, has grown. And then the other side of that is, I do not have a team of evaluators that are dedicated to this work. So for a long time, it happens off the side of the desk. So 2 years is a long time, but I'm not sure without actually dedicating new resources to it, I'm not sure how we can make it any faster.
Well, and maybe it's an unfair question to ask of you, actually, and so maybe I'll ask it more broadly to, I don't know, Mr. Lachlan, and you know, if I'm going to assume, and I hope this is a safe assumption, that generally speaking, that type of evaluation framework, that process, is ideally in place in a lot of our branches, and I would hope that when we, when we get an audit like this, we go and look at those other branches to make sure, are there takeaways that we can take from that one and apply other spaces? But is there something more broadly as an organization that we say, hey, we want to be keeping an eye on the evaluation of these outcomes in every branch, and so are there folks who are able to help with that work? Because if we're saying we can't do it for 2 years because the branch itself isn't doing it, I imagine we have some type of monitoring more broadly as a department-wide or city-wide.
We do, Councillor Knack. I think this recommendation was based on, the timeline for this recommendation was based on the challenges that we're experiencing. Keep in mind that we've laid off a number of staff to manage the budget constraints that we have. In addition to that, based on the upcoming budget, we've also made some significant recommendations, should council support, that further reduces staff. So it really comes down to priorities. This branch in particular is under a tremendous amount of pressure as it relates to responding to the current social issues. This estimate for time was developed on that basis. If audit committee is not happy with that and would like to accelerate it, we can, but it's going to come at the expense of other work. Administration has done our best to evaluate the priorities around the work that they're currently doing in relation to this recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. I'm out of time.
Councillor Carmel.
Thank you. And so thank you for the questions and answers today and for the report. Ms. Ford, I want to say I understand just how challenging this is for your branch and for your, for the people that work with you and for you, how hard this is to do. My wife is an education assistant and deals with children that have challenges in a classroom setting all day. I know how hard that work can be when it's very hard to measure and very hard to evaluate. And it's work that I could not do myself. So I really appreciate the efforts. But we heard yesterday during our conversation with the police commission, the police chief said that we have a $7.5 billion social service ecosystem, and we can't measure, or we don't measure, what comes out of that ecosystem. And I think that this potentially stands to be one of those prime examples of, we see the money going in, but we are unable to clearly articulate what we get for those dollars. And I know that it doesn't just reduce to a financial conversation all the time, but there's a lot of conversations around dollars, particularly when it comes to the police service. So I guess quite simply, is there a way to accelerate, as Councillor Knack was asking, to accelerate the move to establishing a framework? And I note the comment here is that the branch has clearly defined and communicated its purpose, its role, outcomes to stakeholders in the city's corporate documents. So, respectfully, is there not a way to get to some form of metrics that show that we are meeting those outcomes in a measured way?
As I said earlier, Councillor Carmel, we just have to weigh what work doesn't advance or what work pauses in order to do that. Again, we've made a number of significant reductions. The reductions will continue when we bring them as part of budget if council supports them. We're trying to manage the best we can in terms of the resources that are available. But if if audit committee would like to provide a different timeline for this, we'll do our best to meet that time frame, but it will be at the expense of some other work that's happening in that branch. And maybe that's what we need to do, is to articulate for us to accelerate getting to this framework, here are some of the other bodies of work within the branch that would have to pause. And if you'd like us to do that, we'll provide, we'll do that work.
Well, I'll wait to hear what others say and what is offered that way. Two other aspects. One, I think there is somewhat of a credibility issue here that is raised when it's articulated that we have an absence of measuring targets and measuring outcomes. But we also have a fiduciary responsibility to other orders of government because some of this money is passed through. And if we can't necessarily show that we are responsibly allocating the money that has been given to us to allocate, is that not a risk? Which would then perhaps raise the urgency on establishing an overarching framework.
Councillor, I would turn to Mr. Ewan for some clarification on that question. The $127 million that is allocated, that is referenced in the chart on page 6, of that 70 million is not, if I'm correct on that, that's other orders of government. So the other portion of the 70 million, including the FCSS, is audited and the outcomes are measured, and that audit happens every year. So the provincial funding, which is our second largest source of funding, is independently audited by not only an auditing firm, but also the province of Alberta. So the money that we're looking at would be that other portion, the what is it, $55 million.
Right. Okay. Well, that is certainly helpful, Ms. Ford. Thank you for that.
And yeah, I'll just echo, sorry, Councillor, I'll just echo approximately 61 million, I think, was FCSS funding, and Ms. Ford is correct, that is audited by the province.
Okay. And as I said, that does help with my feeling here. So thank you very much, and thank you for your answers today.
Councillor Nicol?
So, eventually, this has to turn to the CFO. Ms. Pearson, I mean, we've been eyeing each other in the sense that she knows the questions were coming, because eventually somebody has to cut the check, right, Ms. Pearson? So, I'd like your comments on these questions, like on page 18 with we're talking about inadequate evaluation processes and so on. I guess the challenge that I'd like you to ask you about is that it says ineffective grant administration practices affecting accountability. I mean, how does you as the CFO think about that? And as you heard Councillor Knack and Councillor Cartmell ask about an accelerated MTO framework, doesn't it really have to be driven by the person who signs the checks?
So, Councillor, a couple of things on what I read into the audit, and Mr. Ewan can probably correct, is there's some basic fundamentals to ensure, from a basic financial perspective, the grants are in place to cut the checks. So the basics are there from my understanding, but it's the outcomes and tying that money to the value for money that is at issue. And so I can fully work with Rob and Ms. Ford's team with our strategic group to try and help them with the evaluative framework, but it does take away from the work they're doing on the ground right now. And so there is a trade-off that Mr. Laughlin talked to, but we are willing to work with them. But I would highlight, I do not believe that the audit says that the fundamentals are there, that the money is flowing out incorrectly. It's just being able to assess.
That's not my assertion.
Okay.
My question is that how do you assess as you move money through? Because I think you're in the unique position to be held, no disrespect, to be held to account, to question how did the money flow through here, and obviously you've been brought in to change some of these systems. So can you tell me what we're doing here from your perspective as CFO to get this towards this value for money question, because that's all what we all just, it's a trust but verify thing, right?
And Councillor, we are willing, as a CFO and with some of the new strategy pieces around performance measurement and other, we can work with this to address. We fully expect to work with this group to enhance those the performance measures. The question is, it will be a partnership, and so it's not drawing on Ms. Ford's time when she's trying to enact a lot of other things. So it's that balance. But I take your point, and we can move forward.
Yeah, I know it's a big business. I know it's a big business. I get that, and I know it's hard. It's hard. So it's not a question of me trying to get you into trouble. I'm trying to get you out of trouble, because the systems matter here. Because the danger, I think we can all appreciate, is if we don't have proper accounting, it will undermine the people's confidence in the programming. And that's we all want to avoid that, wouldn't we agree? So in a kind of a don't you think fashion. So Mr. Ewan, let's talk about your perspective, and then I'll get Rob the chance to talk about what we can in the short term here be looking at, trying to put some MTOs around, and then there's the longer term measures on social return on investment. There is a resistance. You can't measure me, kind of conversation that goes on in various large systems. You can't measure me, what I do, my true value. Is there something you want to highlight and prioritize here that would be a quick and easy win for everyone here?
Councilor Nico, I do believe that the branch has done a very good job in terms of the affordable housing. So they have targets there. I can't remember what they are, but by a certain year that they were hoping to achieve a number of units in affordable housing. So it's those kind of targets, outputs that we're looking at, I guess. And I agree with you. From our perspective, to be accountable to the taxpayers, some sort of evaluation has to take place in some form or another.
With my last seconds, I'm going to just, I don't want to have to go to another round. You know, I'm a person who goes after the footnotes, Rob, here, and on page 11, activities and other, diversity, inclusion, culture and recreation, and it says better categorization would enable the branch to track these financial contribution activities separately and concisely. That's 74% that presently, as a strategic target, is not defined. Do you want to give me some reassurances about those categories? You follow what I'm saying?
I think with the restructuring that has happened in the branch and the definition of the businesses that we're in now, and the clarity of the, I mean, it sounds high level, but the vision, mission, and purpose of the branch, like that's bringing some specificity to what the branch is doing. And just to amplify Mr. Ewan's comment about the housing file, I mean, that was a couple of years of work, obviously engaging council throughout in terms of what outcomes council's looking for, but then to cascade that into the other lines of business. In the branch, so we have a bit of a model with the housing piece to duplicate in other areas. Probably more complicated and more difficult, but at least it's a start.
Councillor Essinger?
I'm happy to move the recommendation and speak to it when appropriate.
Okay, I'll take the motion to receive 6.7 and 6.8. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to it? Councillor Nichol?
Well, I can't resist talking about metrics, targets, and outcomes, as we all know. And the audit is showing very clearly about something I started to talk about 6 years ago, about proper process mapping, social return on investment metrics, and these things to build the case. And the mayor has, and others on this council have used this as a very good argument to support what we do. And greater clarity is what we need. And here is a classic example of where if we had proper process mapping and so on, and I know some councillors didn't like that idea, and I don't know if they do or not, but I'll speak to the power of process mapping and following the transactional costs through the system to demonstrate the value for what we're doing. The accusation against government has always been, right, any government, is that we're throwing money against the wall and hoping it sticks. And this is a branch and an activity that can very easily get thrown into that, and a lot of times wrongly. right? So when I say trust but verify, it is not just for the public. It is for everyone here. It's for administration, demonstrative value of what it's doing. This is your opportunity. I see this is not as a critique. This is your opportunity to come forward and demonstrate the effectiveness. And where we have problems, where we're running short of money, where we need help, that's when you can start getting other partners in line because they see a return on that investment. I raise a lot of money for charity out there, and when I do that because I can do this because I can show them a social return on investment. They can see it, they can measure it, gives them confidence that their money matters, that it's having an effect. Nobody is going to argue that we shouldn't be doing this. Certainly not me. But we need to constantly demonstrate that we're making people's lives better. And I know that's what everybody here is working towards. But I go back to that phrase again, trust but verify. And it's a never-ending process. And if we had clearer metrics for the branch, I think we could de-stress all your lives a little bit. Certainly from here, because we could start identifying your needs a little faster, and then we could go out there and get you some more resources. And they're not all from government. There's a lot of private sector, labor people, folks out there that are willing to contribute to the solutions once they're clearly defined. And there's the trick. I understand it. Not all of it will be prone to being clearly defined, but a lot of it can be. Like Mr. Smythe talked about the housing file. It's finally coming. It's finally coming. Could it have been quicker? Yeah, we all wanted it to be quicker, but it wasn't, it wasn't to be. So on these other files, and measuring their impact is really important, really, really important. And then at the end of it all, if it comes to a point where we have a problem and we don't have the money, that's when we should start talking about changing the rules, right? Changing what we do, how we do it, asking other orders of government to allow us to do this. And the more specific and more tangible we can make those requests, right? Like Mr. Smythe and Mr. Laughlin, Ms. Pearson, I say this so often, bring me your top 3. What's your top 3 problems? Remember that, Rob? I said, what's your 3 problems? Make them specific so we can knock them off quarter by quarter by quarter. We have to do this with discipline and rigor because, again, we just had the previous discussion about the budget, and it's tight. So now the trust but verify is more important than ever. And we cannot get into analysis paralysis. That's the other side of the coin that I'm going to argue for. Got to be fair, got to be consistent, but we can't overanalyze ourselves to the point where we do nothing. And I raised the issue for Ms. Pearson because I also want to make her job easier as well. Clarity for her. She's nodding, yes, make my job easier, please, because it's difficult. But this is our opportunity now, given what we have. I think this could do wonderful things about building not just public consensus, but leveraging better dollars and getting those better outcomes. This is not a negative audit. I see this as a very positive. Just we got to get refocused on this trust but verify discussion.
Maybe before we go to Councillor Essinger, I'll just hop in real quick. I didn't ask any questions because I think the material is fairly covered in the audit, and I think the big takeaway for me is, as hard as it is, we've got to keep trying to measure what we're doing in some of these different areas, and that is going to take time. I do think that in and of itself that measurement exercise is an opportunity for policy innovation and for us to work with ourselves and with others to figure out how to measure some of these things. But how do you measure whether we're achieving reconciliation or not? I've struggled with that because I've made commitments around it, and I think I don't know how to measure that. But I think we've got to think about how to show what we are doing in ways that at least tell the story, and also collect feedback, because evaluation can be numerical, but it can also be qualitative. And I think understanding where where we need to adjust course is really the thrust. And this is an area that has already adjusted course considerably to respond to council priorities and needs from the community, and had to pivot on a number of them, and shown that in the newer areas of the emphasis around housing, phenomenal stuff is happening in a short period of time, which is great. And in some of the traditional areas around FCSS, those get evaluated through a provincial evaluation framework, but it seems to me that there's also an opportunity for us to think about making sure that we're aligning those prevention investments to support the community safety and well-being conversation we were having the other day, for example. And so I think we're going to continue to come at this a lot of different ways, and the recommendations, all of which have been accepted, will only help us get better at that. So so I appreciate the discussion and the report, even though I didn't have any questions, and we'll be interested to see where we go on particularly recommendation 2 over time. So I'll stop there and go to Councillor Essinger to close, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do at this meeting. So Councillor Essinger.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to everyone, to the audit group, as well as the branch. I think some of the work done by this branch is very challenging and yet very rewarding. We are working with some people on their worst days. We're trying to improve their quality of life. And it's not quite as easy as you have a flat tire and we can fix it and you're on your way. It's very challenging when we're working with the lives of individuals. And I want to say thank you very much. And I think it was very clear in the audit that you are doing what local governments do. You're supporting our citizens in the right areas. And I think that's significant. I appreciate that you've accepted the recommendation, particularly the financial one. We have lots of concerns about that, but only because we want to make sure that we're really wise stewards of our money. I'm interested in the framework as well, but it's not going to be easy to develop that framework because it's not as simple as other areas. But the importance of work that you're doing in housing, I think about some of the domestic violence work, we're really giving people a quality of life, and that is hard to measure at any point in time. So I think as we move forward and we work together, we're going to be able to demonstrate that social return on investment. But the point of the matter is, we want to be good stewards of our dollars, and I know that you do. And I just want to express my gratitude to the work of the branch with limited resources and a changing and challenging time. And you're pivoting to do that work. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Essinger, for those comments. To close, please vote now on receipt of information.
We have all the votes except for Mr. Edmondson's.
And I vote yes.
Thank you, and display the vote. That's carried. Okay, yeah, Mr. Burrows is showing up on that one, so that's good. All right, so we have 3 minutes left to do the part 2 of the city productivity and performance audit. One option would be to roll it over to the next audit committee meeting, because I'm not sure when else we might have. Theoretically, we have time this week, except that we have a whole bunch of other things that that are in the way in those meeting slots. So,
So, Mr. Mayor, if I can interject, I have no concerns if you want to roll it over to the next audit committee meeting. We have worked very closely with all members of EOT and their staff. They understand our position in terms of productivity measures. So that work is already underway. I don't think that it would delay any work that that ELT and administration would have in terms of implementing and incorporating productivity measures into their work. So, and I also understand some of the massive decisions that you and council have to make over the next little while. So I'm certainly good if you need to defer to the next audit committee.
And that's a lighter agenda, I think, as well?
It will be, yes.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'll move that, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Nick will put up his hand first, so
Oh,
I'll take a motion to postpone 6, 9, and 610 to the next audit committee agenda. So is there any further discussion on that? I will seek unanimous consent. Is there any objection to postponement? Not hearing any, then that is so ordered, and I'll just check and see if there are any notices of motion at this time. Seeing none, then we're adjourned. Thank you very much.